Hello again, I'm Bob Colt, and we're continuing our conversations in Charlotte Public Schools. Barb Rooker is with me, Parkview Elementary, and our spotlight. And so, what are you spotlighting at the elementary school?
What are we spotlighting? Well, we have, being a focus school for the second year, we have interventions that we're spotlighting. We call them our WIN groups. They're what I need, and we focus specifically in on the math. And then this year we have started our positive behavior interventions course, the PBIS. And so our whole theme is spreading your Oriole wings. And so everything revolves around wings.
So what do you tell kids?
Well, we built a whole big behavior matrix of what do each area of the building look like if you're behaving, in the way we would want you to in that area. And the wings is the guideline. So for W, we welcome differences. We interact safely, we nurture respect, we generate solutions to problems, and we show responsibility.
I am impressed that you remembered all of that. Congratulations.
I do. And so if kids are caught doing those different things, they can earn our Oriole feathers. And then we have a wings store that when they earn like 15, 30, or 45 wings, they can turn those in. And 15, it's your basic treasure box. Then it gets a little bit bigger prize, and then 45, which it's a long time of saving, but they can basically earn my chair for the day. I give it up.
You give up your chair?
Give up my chair for the day. Wheel it on down to them, they get it for the day.
Oh, wow. Okay, so now tell me, you talked a little bit, you mentioned behavior. So you have to really work on, at your age in the elementary school, both learning and behavior issues. So what do you really want kids to know, or what do you want their parents to know?
Really, behaviorally, when it comes down to those things, what we have discovered through lots of different, study into research into the poverty work as our, free and reduced lunch increases and things like that, is that kids don't separate naturally the difference between my rules at home and my rules at school. So we have to actively teach them this is the way this happens in these different locations. And so it's just really that focus on every place you go, a movie theater, out to dinner, a difference between if you go to Chuck E. Cheese or if you go to a nice restaurant and you sit down for a while. They have their own set of rules, and we have to kind of learn those rules and adapt to them in our different settings.
And so kids at home might have few or no rules. And so when you come to school, you have to have some rules because you have other kids in the school. And
we talk about those. Like sometimes we'll ask kids very specifically, what is the difference between a rule you might have at home and a rule you might have at school? And I actually just did this last week with a couple of kids, and what they told me was, well, at home, I can build like a fort, and I can jump off the chair onto the pile of pillows and stuff like that. I remember doing that myself. But at school, we're not going to climb on the chairs and jump off of them.
Yeah.
So.
And so go through wings again for me, because I think that's kind of interesting. Start with the W. What do you try to tell kids?
So for welcoming differences, we really focus on the fact that everybody is a part of everything, and it takes all of us working together, that we are one full school team unit. It's not just your class, it's not just your group of friends, but it's all of second grade. It's all of Parkview. It's everybody together that makes us go forward.
Okay, and the I again?
And then I is interact safely. And so that's, just not only being aware of your own surroundings and what you're doing to make sure that you're staying safe, but helping others stay safe as well.
Do you find kids looking out for other kids?
We do. We do. And we also, with that too, with our third grade, we started the safeties back up. We had them a couple years ago there, and we started those back up. And so we're helping the older kids learn how to say, hey, you really need to walk in the hallway, and why that's important. So not just stop, but please walk. I want you to be safe. I don't want you to accidentally fall into somebody else too.
Great.
So we're helping express that.
So Barb Rooker, we're on N.
We are. Nurture respect, and that's, a lot of them tie together. And so the nurture respect, it's just, that comes down to that whole rule of treating others how you want to be treated. And so, if you don't like being called names, then we're not going to call other people names and things like that. So just that whole, we're all here to learn, and we're going to be respectful of each other's learning space, just like you would want people to be respectful of your learning space.
So that requires a lot of role models.
A lot of role models.
So what do you do to encourage that? I mean, obviously people who interact with the kids in school are role models, but also other community people. You want to make sure the kids are looking at them.
And some of what we are able to do with that for what comes into the building is that when we have substitutes come in, or even mentors, some of our Kids Hope mentors and things that come in, we let them all know about the program we're running, and they can, give away feathers just like anybody else if they see awesome stuff happening.
Okay, get to G.
G, generate solutions to problems. We actually have a wheel of choices that we devised, and we, trying to help kids work on trying multiple things. Sometimes the first thing doesn't always work. And trying at least 3 different things before they try to solicit help from an adult. Along with that is the teaching of that line of sometimes you don't try things, sometimes you have to tell an adult right away.
Yeah. And so what kind of instances would you think of to communicate with kids where you don't try things?
Oh, a lot of those that we find on the playground are things like they won't give me a turn on the teeter-totter, or I want that truck, not the one that's sitting over here. Ready that nobody's doing. So a lot of those minimal examples we find on the playground that we encourage them to, okay, what could you do? We could take turns with it. I could ask them if I could have a chance.
So generate problem-solving solutions to what goes on.
Absolutely.
And that S?
And then S is showing responsibility, and that's, that daily life thing of we all got things that we have to do each day.
Yeah.
And it's everybody's responsibility to make sure those things are done, straight from our homework to, if you're asked to run something to the office, to go straight there and straight back and not messing around other places.
And so, dealing at the elementary school level, what kind of challenges do you really have?
For behavior-wise, a lot of the challenges are sometimes the understanding of those expectations. And really at our age too, especially, it's the understanding that the way it might look for one person doesn't always look the same way the other person. They still have that idea of, well, what's fair means it's exactly the same. And so when they see something happening and the teacher might not react to one person the same way they do another person, for a multitude of reasons that could be, that's not fair in their eyes.
Yeah.
So it's that word fair that is the biggest challenge, I would say.
And do you find kids negotiating with you constantly, or their teachers?
I would say that we see that a lot less now that we're talking more actively about behaviors and actually practicing them. I mean, we spent, the whole first week doing just those, and then the first month, every Monday, it was just expectations. And then anytime something comes up, like we recently were seeing more playground things, and so we had a whole another week where we focused again on the playground rules. If we see bathroom, we focus all on that. So it just varies around.
So let's get to academics.
Sure.
I mean, what should we know that's going on?
The big things here at the elementary level is that we've got our Wonders program now for literacy. That's brand new. Last year we had piloted the 2 different programs, and now this year we're on the Wonders, and so we're really getting deep into that, and we're finding lots of great interventions to help kids with our closing of our gap that we've got going on. We also made the transition this year to school-wide title instead of the targeted title.
What does that mean?
What that gives us the opportunity to do is focus on any child that is needing help, and not just where typically in title it was just that bottom percent that aren't scoring, on their mark or close to the mark for their grade level. Now we have the ability to touch, you use that loosely, but get in there and work with every single student. So, if you have that kid that they're right there, they're almost getting, if there's just that one thing that's kind of holding them back, we have the opportunity to pull them or push in with them, work hard and bump them over that and proceed them on to the next thing. And then our version of that we're running with math is what I said was our win groups, and that's our what I need, and we take little mini assessments, and a lot of them at this point right now are teacher created, but they still, it's just, this is the area you want to focus. So 5 or 6 just addition problems. Either they completely understand it or they don't. We put them on a hierarchy, for lack of a better word there, and divide them out into very small groups for about a half an hour each day, and just intense focus on that intervention that they need on. We don't understand carrying, or I'm still counting domino dots to help me go straight through. The ones that are getting it full swing, they're flying, we're pushing. Starting to put in some of that accelerated learning.
Because kids really are sponges, and if they're moving through their academic program, you want to push them as much as and have them absorb information. And kids who, there might be a red flag you want to give special attention to.
Absolutely.
And so what sort of things do you do to push those kids who are accelerating?
We haven't gotten to this one yet this year, but I will use one example that we did last year were kids that were, they had their addition down, they had all that down. What we did is we kind of challenged them to now learn their Roman numerals. And so then they played, it's called Top It in the everyday math curriculum, and it's kind of like war for people that aren't familiar with the everyday math. But we would each put down different Roman numerals, and we'd start with having the sheet in front of you, compare what number did you get, and seeing if they could do it without.
Because that really has them calculate a lot of information in their heads, doesn't it?
It does. And then we push that into the Egyptian hieroglyphics even. They started learning some of those as well.
That's exciting.
It's very exciting. So that was fun. And I'll tell a little personal story because it is math related.
Sure.
I know my daughter was learning that Roman numerals last year, and it was right around the Thanksgiving break, and I played what felt like a bazillion games of Roman numeral top it over the course of the Thanksgiving break. And at one point she finally looked and said, "Here, you can have the cheat sheet. You need it more than I do." Which was, quite humorous. I was like, "Oh, thanks. It has been a long time since I did Roman numerals."
Well, there you go, Mom.
It has been a long time, so there you go. Exactly.
And so then if you're working with kids who are really accelerating through academics, what do you do with those kids who might have some special concerns that you have to focus on to make sure that they're performing well?
We do, like I said, an intense focus on that skill, breaking it way down as small as we can get it. Is it counting dots? Are they counting correctly? If it's words, are they even hearing the sounds? We really pull it down to what is causing the problem, and we work with that part. And then we progress monitor that. We keep checking that every couple of weeks, doing a little mini assessment to see where are they at, are they making progress or not, is that intervention working. We have our MTSS, which stands for Multi-Tiered System Supports, and it's just a team that meets to look at these kids that are struggling, to offer different ideas and suggestions and interventions to do, and we track those to see if they're working or not. And if they're working, keep pushing forward. If they're not, then we keep looking for the next thing.
And so those assessments are really critical.
They are very critical.
Because you're kind of mapping out what the roadmap is for kids to navigate in their education.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Yeah, and so you don't do that in a large, you do it, cumulatively it becomes large, but almost each child has their own roadmap to what they're going to move through. And that's what really helps them succeed.
Yep, they absolutely do. And like for our main title groups, we start with the Dibbles testing and who is scoring well below the benchmark. And then the Wonders version of that is called Wonder Works. And every 6 weeks, they have naturally built in some assessments they do to say, okay, what progress have they made? Should they be pushed on to the next level of book and challenged a little harder? Do they need a little bit more time in the lower level books? Yeah. So through between the Wonder Works and the Wonders program, I think there's 5 different levels of reading books that they can progress through. So it really, straight from starting 2 years below the grade level that they're in to going above the grade level they're in.
And young kids are really learning to read at this level, and later they're reading to learn.
Absolutely.
That people say. So what do you find are the, if you could tell parents at home, here's how you can help in your child's education, what sort of advice do you give to them?
Read, and more read.
Really?
Absolutely. They need to be reading with them all the time, and read with them and make a game out of it. You read the odd number pages, they read the even number pages. Just do something that's enjoyment so that they can see you reading as much as you're trying to convey to them that they need to be reading. Yeah. Let them see you reading a magazine. Let them see you reading an actual thick book, or the electronic readers that everybody has. Just let them do all those things with them. If they're reading along with their child and they come to a word that they don't know, don't just automatically tell them that word. Ask them to tell you the sounds in the word, to blend it together. I was just in a first grade room the other day where that's everything we did. We just wrote one word after another and said the sounds individually, blend it together. Just repetitively, and just practice those things. I know all of the teachers at Parkview send home those main words that they're working on for the week. Make flashcards out of those. Practice those words over and over and over.
Words of the week.
Absolutely.
Kind of a simple concept.
It is.
But something parents can do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so, how do you encourage parents to read with their kids? But how do parents who some may believe, geez, they go to school to learn. I've got to deal with them when they get home with all of these other things. Their education never really ends.
It never really
age.
ends.
Yeah.
And I think it's just that continuous conversation that we have to remember that, we don't just read when we just sit down to enjoy this book, or we want to see the news if we're reading the newspaper still, or things like that. Those aren't the only times we're reading. We read at the grocery store. Which brand do you want to buy? Are you looking for something to have certain ingredients or not have certain ingredients? You're going to try a new recipe. That math and that reading is everywhere around us continuously, and it's just helping students see, help your own children see that, it's there. You can't get away from it.
So that's kind of the reading importance. What do you do with kids who are working on math? How can you help them?
There are tons of games out there that are math oriented. A basic game of Yahtzee with a couple of dice. Some of the games that are in our everyday math are games that you could easily adapt at home, of playing a deck of cards. You draw 2 cards, depending on the level of the kids, which number's higher, which number's lower. If we add them together, draw 4 cards and put them in order of digits that you can make the largest number, the smallest number, lots of different ways to incorporate those different things. We actually, in the spring every year, we have a curriculum night, and for the last several years we have focused it on those math games and teaching those games to families so that they know they can go home, and we give them a little baggie at the end of the night of the materials they would need to go home and play those games as well.
So you're also teaching the parents
Absolutely.
as they come to school.
Absolutely.
And have that interaction with their teachers.
Yep, and the parent or the teachers send home a little I forgot what it's even called now, but it's like a little mini newsletter, for lack of a better word, from the Everyday Math program that tells them here's what they're working on, here are some at-home tips on what you could do, here's kind of the focus of the game we're going to be playing this week and stuff, so that they can see it in writing as well.
And so as kids focus and get some extra time on their academics at home, they look to their parents for some lifelong learning, because teachers may be in their life for a year and then sort of move out. And actually having different teachers is kind of a good thing, isn't it? It gives kids a fresh perspective, and they have their parents at home that they can work with all the time.
I think so. And on any given day, many of our kids will easily see at least 3 different teachers, because they'll have their specials teacher, they'll have their regular teacher, and then most of our kids, when they get to that WIN group that we talked about, they get dispersed out. We do a whole grade level at a time, so they get dispersed out between lots of different teachers. And then not to mention the ones they interact with on the playground, or just year after year after year. So yeah, absolutely. It's just a different perspective.
Hey, let me just ask you about play, because play is kind of serious fun too. That's something that you really, for elementary kids, have to schedule time and create some positive opportunities for them on the playground, isn't it?
It is. It is. We have this year taken the scheduling of the playground a little bit differently, the recess. In the past, we have had one set time that the whole school went out every day. And this year we changed that up, and now just a grade level goes out at a time. Only one time throughout the week does the whole school go out. And we're seeing very positive results of that. It's a smaller amount on the playground, so kids are getting a better opportunity to explore the different parts of the playground and just the different general muscles that are needed to do a lot of those gross motor things
Yeah.
and the fine motor things with the trucks and making the levers go and things like that. So they're getting a better opportunity out there to play those different things. And then our teachers, first grade really did a lot of it at the beginning of the year. They would take about 10 minutes every day and go out and very specifically teach one of the old schoolyard games, the Red Rover, the Mother May I, and so we see kids playing all those things too.
So those are learning opportunities
Absolutely.
for kids as well. So as they're in the elementary level, what do you hope that the kids take away? I mean, they're constantly assessed and tested now at the state level. What do you really need to make sure they achieve when they complete the elementary level?
Every grade, of course, has its expectations. You need to meet these things overall. But I still think the root of it all is coming down to making sure that we still instill that love of learning, because they're not going to be successful year after year after year. They're not going to want to push to that next grade level expectations if they don't see a purpose in it. So I think we just have to keep that love and enjoyment of learning in general going, and you have to kind of give them that spark to see, okay, why do I want to know what's coming up? So, as they master one thing, I think it's important that we keep saying, okay, well, now that you know this, here's what's going to come next.
Yeah.
Just giving them enough to want to be interested to say, hey, okay, so now what?
And it keeps their interest in learning. Now, the kids are back in school. We're moving through the term and the year. But do you think about often, think of all the time we miss during summer vacation or during breaks or whatever. Do you find a need that kids always have to be learning, and how do you structure that downtime for them too? Is there anything that parents should know?
I think as natural human beings, we all need some downtime. I think the balance there is to, even if you want something that your kid to be learning, I think the balance is knowing that you don't have to sit down paper and pencil and say, here, we're going to learn this. You can do it in so many different ways. I mean, we'll be honest, not that we can get there right now, but if we go to the dunes and, there's little things of just the estimation of, well, who's going to get there first if we run up this dune? How long do you think it will take us? And it's just a game, and it's fun, and that's okay, but you can still just interject that little bit. But I think it's perfectly okay to sometimes just say, you know what, let's just run. We need to run.
That's great.
We just have to have that balance.
So what do you think's ahead as you look toward the rest of the year for Parkview?
The rest of the year for Parkview is a lot of data interpretation. Like I said, as a focus school, last year was our first year really just trying to dig in and see what does this mean. And now this year, it's putting all those assessment results on the paper and looking at them daily. We've got data walls up now where we're looking at them daily and going, this kid's not moving. What do we still need to do for them? And it's just looking at what can we do for each kid and how can we touch each kid in a different light than we've done before.
And we often talk about, kids performing, but sometimes teachers don't have knowledge of what's going on in the next classroom, so they might not know of successful techniques. You've really got to open channels of communication for teachers, right?
Oh, absolutely we do. And some of that comes in our Wednesday morning meetings that we have, and in fact this week we're going to be looking at what verbiage needs to be done to meet up with the Common Core state standards as we make that transition for what expectations are reported to our parents on our progress reports. And some of that conversation today revolved around, okay, so as I look at my grade level, I need to know what's happening before and what's happening after so that we can have a continuity as we make our way through the grade levels.
And you think of Common Core, and people have talked about that has different connotations to people. Some good, some bad, but what you're trying to do is create some standards at all that people, as in a mobile society, that kids could go to any school district.
And that's the key. It's just our transiency is so high. We need to be able to say, hey, we know where they should have been or not been, what they've been exposed to, because we've had years of kids sitting back because they moved and going, oh, well, we did this last month, and then they're hearing the same thing and missing out on something completely different.
So everybody should share information, share some common standards. And so if you know what's coming up in the next year at Parkview, how are you planning? What are you actually doing to make sure that, I mean, you've got this assessment, level of assessment that you have to do. How do you actually generate and create your own ideas so that kids can get the education they need?
Well, it all starts with the team. I mean, none of it is a one-person deal, and it's that huge team sitting down and going, okay, so what has worked, what hasn't worked? So, we've done X, Y, and Z, and we've done the balanced literacy for years, and it wasn't getting us the results we needed. So that's why we said, okay, we need to look at something different as a district, and that's where that one was, and that's why we ended up with the Wonders Literacy Program. Yeah. And so, and that just fits into the whole constant look, and it's, knowing that you have an end result that you want, but there's not a one-way road to it. You're going to veer through the woods a lot to get there, because you just have to make adjustments with each kid and how you go. And so, we know that closing the gap is our goal. We know that, what percents we need to be hitting each year to meet the standards of the state. And it's the combined effort of what can you do to help with that. And that leads us into some of the things we're looking at. Like some of it's just even, last week started, I keep calling it the mall walking because I can't come up with a better term. But before school, instead of kids just standing outside waiting for school to start, when they arrive, they come in and we walk the halls just to get that blood flow going, get the brain ready and energized. Now we're looking at what can we do for some of those kids that, they're there early, maybe they do, maybe they don't eat breakfast, but they really could use some extra reading time. Do they even need to walk at that point, or could we pull them in for an extra 10 minutes of instruction? How can we creatively get them every possible minute of learning?
Well, it's great that you're thinking about all of those things. Barb Rooker, Parkview Elementary, thank you for joining us. I'm Bob Colt, and we'll continue our conversations in Charlotte Public Schools.